More than 217,000 Virginians rely on federal rental assistance to put roofs over their heads. Thousands of them live right here in Hampton Roads.
But the places they call home don't always meet the mark. Data released by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development shows several local public housing complexes scored low on their most recent inspections. 10 on your side's Geena Arevalo investigates how federal funding affects quality of life in these communities.
We investigated and found failing inspection scores at public housing complexes in 3 of the 7 cities. We talked with local housing authorities who say there is a severe lack of federal funding, which has caused aging properties to deteriorate.
In my unit, we've experienced flooding, we've experienced mold.
Those are just some of the issues Elysia Hawkins has dealt with over the last 9 years living at Tidewater Gardens in Norfolk.
Every time my neighbor has an issue in her bathroom, I have an issue in my bathroom.
Tidewater Gardens scored a 58 on its latest HUD inspection. A 60 is considered passing. Several public housing communities in Norfolk, Newport News, and Suffolk received failing scores.
My kids told me, Mom, it's time to get out of here. So that's what I did.
Loretta Hargrove is a throat cancer survivor who lived at Aqueduct Apartments in Marshall Courts in Newport News. Aqueduct most recently scored a 57, while Marshall Courts just passed with a 61.
I had mold and water leaking in the wall there, and the air conditioning unit was leaking, and my walls turned gray.
Hargrove put in numerous maintenance requests, but she says they were Band-Aid fixes, so the problems persisted. She moved out of Marshall Courts earlier this year. She believes some of the issues she dealt with impacted her health. 10 on Your Side investigators spoke with other public housing residents who didn't want to go on camera, but they say they experienced problems ranging from large leaks to HVAC systems not working properly.
They're getting the amount of money that the federal government is committed to provide, and so that means that they aren't able to cover the basic costs that any building manager or owner has to cover to keep their buildings in decent condition.
HUD says it's not getting enough funding from Congress either. Will Fisher with the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities based out of Washington, D.C., says that's led to a massive backlog of unmet needs.
The underfunding goes, back for decades.
Housing authorities receive 2 sources of funding from HUD, one for operating costs, which cover things like maintenance issues, the other for capital grant projects, which covers things like roofs and HVAC replacements. In 2010, HUD documented more than $25 billion in capital needs for public housing. But experts say that number has likely ballooned, creating a bigger deficit for housing authorities to deal with.
The housing industry estimated that from 2010 up until 2021, the backlog has grown up to about $70 billion.
HUD is working to update its estimate of the national backlog in capital needs for public housing now after Congress requested more updated data. Local housing authorities say they're in a frustrating position.
If you have a need of $100 and you're only getting $25, that's basically what it comes to.
Fisher says it's an unfortunate cycle, creating hardships for low-income families. 68% of Virginians on rental assistance are seniors, children, or people with disabilities.
These are problems that we could solve, but we have to be able to be willing to put the resources into doing it.
So what's being done to address these issues? Local housing authorities tell us there are projects in the works to help create a better living experience for their residents. We'll have more on that coming up later tonight on WAVY News 10 at 6:15. Geena Arevalo, 10 on Your Side.